All right. I'm here. You're here. And some jerk is here. So help me out and post some stuff so that we can kind of roll that stuff through. I don't know if it still appears on the YouTube page or not. Let's see. Let me pull up that page here. And we'll just go to the Eastern Shore Broadcasting page on what do you call that? The internet. Oh, yeah. We'll go to the Watch Live tab. And we'll go to... I guess I get to see it still because I'm the administrator. Oh, well, that's all right. That's all right. So, hello to, who is that? That's Peter is here. And is that Gunner? Automation for vMix? And yeah, and then the rest of you. I'm really excited. I came up with this thought of doing a twist on the Streaming Idiot show. I'm not sure whether it's going to be a segment in the show or whether it's going to be a show of its own. But the idea is Tom's Studio, kind of like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, except different, significantly different, but the same idea where we can just kind of come hang out. I can show you what I do. It's not very elaborate. It's not very high tech. But then again, it is. So it all depends on where you're coming from. So I'll be excited to do that. I will mention now, and I'll mention again later, that there'll be a QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, part of the lower third, that will take you to a website where you can make a donation in honor of Martin Steed to the it's called Just Giving is the name of the organization that takes the money, but it is for the outfit Well Made, which is supports disabled people in England. Welcome, Power Jams. Glad to have you. Yeah, looks like some spam. You know, eventually, if you hang out with the wrong crowd long enough, I'm teasing, of course. Yep. Somebody just cruising through. We've blocked him for 300 something. I don't know. Was it 300 seconds or 300 minutes? Anyway, we'll see if he comes back. He'll probably get bored and leave. That's all right. Glad to have him gone. No, so it's going to be interesting. Today, part of our segment will be the introduction for Tom's Studio, and we'll talk a little bit about my audio setup. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth, but because I'm just sort of testing the concept, and I wanted to test it on you. So today we'll sort of try that out. And I'm not sure whether it's just going to be a segment again, or whether we'll transition to a new show. We'll see. But yeah, no, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But a big shout out to Ken from Crestview. Ken watched last week's show after the fact because he has a regular job. And so he's working right now. He's working. He'll see this later. But Ken called to thank me for some of the suggestions that I had, or some of the thoughts that I had on last week on vMix 25. What could be, what should be, what might be in vMix 25. So we'll have to see. Welcome, Marie. Even at the end of the internet, there is spam. That's right. Welcome, Bill. Glad to see you from Long Beach, Missouri. Yeah, that's what MS is for. And Chris is here. Glad to see you. So we will be able to watch Detest show. That's right. Yes. And Eric, all right, Eric Tabor's here. Well, then, straighten up, everybody. No, glad to have you, Eric. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting little show today. We're doing a few things different in this show, and then we'll see how that works for more. Oh, from Baltimore. Well, welcome, Power Jams from Baltimore, Maryland. We are Eastern Shore Broadcasting, but it's a different Eastern Shore than the one you would think of up in the Baltimore way. We're on the eastern shore of the Bay of Mobile, across from the city of Mobile, located on the lovely Gulf of Mexico, down at the tip of Alabama. So yeah. So today's going to be a little different. We'll try it out. We'll see. One of the other differences today is that we're streaming. We always, or most always, stream. Hey, Tim, welcome. Glad you're here. We most always stream to two destinations, to YouTube, which most of you guys are watching the YouTube feed, and to Facebook, to the Streaming Idiots group. But I've always lamented the fact that we couldn't glean comments from the YouTube group because of the permissions that are built into every Facebook group that apparently prevent vMix Social from getting access to the API and scraping the comments off. So today, instead, we are going to be live streaming to YouTube and also to Facebook, the Eastern Shore Broadcasting page. And so if you're watching on the page, we can see your comments and reply to your comments there from the page. And then the page is being, I think it's shared is technically the term. Hello, Daniel. Welcome, Jan. Oh, MS is for Mississippi. Oh, yeah. I knew that. I was just seeing if you knew that. Of course you know that. That's where you live. So we're streaming to two destinations, but I think with three real endpoints. But only two of the endpoints vMix Social can respond to. So if you're watching us on the Streaming Idiots feed, then I see it. John was wishing me a God evening. Well, thank you. I like that. If you're watching us on the Streaming Idiots, out of the Streaming Idiots group, and are commenting, we can't see your comments. I guess I could see your comments if I could put up a Facebook screen up there somehow. Well, I'll work on that. Just not right this second. How are we doing on time? Good. I have yet to move my clock. I need to move it right there. Although I've got clocks all over the screen, you'd think, a big boy like me would figure out how to take advantage of the technology in front of me. Maybe I need to have this is what I was going to do, and I didn't have time to do it today, but I think I'm going to do it for next time. The way my setup is here, and I don't want to get too much into the show content, but this is, we'll talk about this in the show another time, but not today. I've got two monitors in front of me. One of them's blank. Well, it's not blank. It just doesn't have anything on it. The other monitor is the vMix desktop. And then I've got a big screen TV kind of across the room, but right behind the camera. So I can supposedly make eye contact with you guys and see the posts. And on that TV, I've got a couple of Chrome pages up. One of them is the Hello, Otis. Glad to have you. Welcome. How are things in Houston? Oh, things are sad in Houston. I'm sorry. I shouldn't even have brought it up. I'm a Braves fan. So good for us. Sorry for you guys. The Braves beat the Atlanta Braves professional baseball team, beat the Houston Astros in the World Series last night. And so won the series 4-2. It was pretty convincing win. What was it? 7-0, something like that. Yeah. All right, so let's try one more thing here. So before we go, we're going to put a timer where I can not ignore it. On display 2, we're going to put input number 12 and make that a full screen. Is that going to work? Nope. because that's display 2 across the room. So we need to go to settings. Hold on, I know we're supposed to be starting. Full screen 1 is going to be display 2. Let's see if that works. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now I've got oh boy, it's a big clock right there. And it's time to start the show. All right. Yeah, congratulations, I guess. Well, that means you're a gentleman if you're congratulating me. Yeah. Yeah. Peter says, okay, Peter says that a percentage of his Facebook comments are missing in vMix Social. He usually loses 10%. That's interesting. I don't use Facebook up until today to glean comments in vMix Social. If you want to go over to Facebook, to the Eastern Shore Broadcasting page and post a comment, I'll let you know if I see it come in up here. And I didn't realize there was that kind of inconsistency. I hope you've reported it to vMix. They should be able. Well, maybe they can fix it. Maybe they can't. You know, things that kind of go outside of the vMix sphere don't always get fixed by the appropriate third party. So, let's see. Jan says, those who complain about all the updates Microsoft sends out for Windows clearly haven't tried Ubuntu. Ubuntu would be a Linux-based system. I thought Linux was the solution to everything. Tells you how much I know. All right, here we go. Let's get a show on the road, shall we? At least we'll try. At least we'll try. Got my handy-dandy X Keys 80 here. And I'm going to hit the magenta button. Ready? Ta-da! Welcome. This is Streaming Idiots, and I'm Tom Sinclair, and I got to fix my seat. Okay, there we go. All right. It's one of those swaying chairs. I mean, one of those kind of rocking chairs, and I'll rock. Believe me, I will rock. It's bad enough that I'll rock, but I'll also turn, and I can't lock that out. Some of the early shows that we did way back when, you know, people would say, Tom, you're rocking. I was like, oh, golly. So I had to find a chair that had a clicker in it that would freeze the chair in its position. So I think I finally got one. Welcome. Glad you're here today on Streaming Idiots. Holy cow, Streaming Idiots. Streaming Idiots. Welcome to all of you that are just joining us, including Sam from Mississippi. Welcome. MS is Mississippi, not Missouri. Right, Bill? Anyway, I'm so delighted to have you with us today. If you're watching us at easternshorebroadcasting.com, then you are watching the YouTube feed, and there is an ability to chat there, or you can go straight to our YouTube page and chat there. We're also live streaming a little differently today, not that much different, but we're live streaming to Facebook, again to our Eastern Shore Broadcasting page, so that we can glean the comments from that. So if anybody wants to go over to Facebook, to the Eastern Shore Broadcasting page, you don't have to, I don't even think you have to like the page to get on it. You should see the live stream there, and you can make a comment. And I've got the vMix Social right behind the camera right there, so I can maintain eye contact with you and read the comments as they come in as well. So that would be great. And then that is copied and posted to the Streaming Idiots page. So you'll see it on the Streaming Idiots page, but any comments you make on the Streaming Idiots page won't show up here. I'll see those later, and I promise I'll respond to them. Last week, I briefly, actually, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about the loss of our friend Martin Steed, Steadicam from England, from the UK. and I promised that we would have a link to the I guess it's sort of like, what's it called? It's a Just Giving is the name of it. Just Giving website where you can make a donation in his name that will end up with an outfit called Well Made, which serves disabled people. And Martin worked with them extensively and loved that community, and that community loved him. So if you would like to honor him in any amount, it doesn't matter, but in any amount, you can you can go to wherever this QR code takes you, which is some big long URL with all sorts of letters and numbers in it that goes specifically to the page for Martin. And there's a wonderful, let's see if I can bring that page up. Yeah, here we go. And there's just a nice description of some of the things that Martin did, and the story that they want you to have, as well as the ability to donate. And so I would thank you for those of you that have donated, and for the rest of us, let's get on the stick. It's a good service that the folks at Well Made do, and it's a great way to honor our friend. So there you go. That will take you to justgiving.com to make a donation that will go to Well Made, and an outfit in England that serves disabled folks and that Martin worked with and believed in. And we can honor our friend by doing that. And let me bring that QR code back up again. There we go. And I'll probably be mentioning this in the next few shows. And of course, you'll have the QR code here. If you want to come back to it later, just take your phone, with the camera, the deal about pulling up QR codes. Welcome, Cools TV. Glad to have you. Thank you for thinking that we look great. You obviously need a check of some kind. Also, coming up on a future show, not exactly sure when, but Charles Smar, the audiovisual director for the city of Daytona Beach, Florida, where we did an install a couple of weeks ago, has graciously accepted my request, my invitation to come on the show from his studio there at the stadium. So he'll have to set up, a camera and some microphones and that kind of stuff. But to show us and talk a little bit about the system that we built for him and installed there. And I think they've had some chance to use it. It's funny when you do these kinds of things, like I do. Sometimes you tend to get a lot of phone calls from people saying, "Okay, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do this other?" And that's always great. I love to get those calls because that means that people are using the system and they're pushing their own limitations. Working with Charles and his team was like working with people that I knew were smarter than me. And I don't think I've gotten one call from them. They've either figured everything out or they've just they haven't tried to use it yet. But I know that's not the case because I know they used it last week. Anyway, so hat tip to Charles and all that group at the Daytona Beach football stadium. It's the home stadium for Bethune-Cookman University as well as some of the local high schools, so it gets a lot of use. So we'll have Charles on the show soon. Coming up today it's an experiment, and I need your feedback on this. I had this idea that I wanted to do something different, and I don't know whether the different is a different show or maybe a segment in the Streaming Idiot show. So we're going to start out with the segment thing because it's a path that's of least resistance. We can make it a segment, and if it looks like it's going to be something fun and necessary for its own time slot, then we'll do that. But I'm going to call it, and this is, I had an argument with do you have an argument, ever have arguments and discussions with yourself? And you take both sides of the argument, and you go back and forth and back and forth. Well, I had one of those today. And I was like, okay, I want to name this segment Tom's Studio. And then part of me says, oh, but that's just your ego getting involved. And the other part of me was like, well, but I want to show off my studio. I want to show what I do, how I do it, so that people can, number one, just be entertained by it, or perhaps learn from it, or maybe even decide to do some of the same kinds of things I'm doing. So that argument beat down the other guy. And we're going to do something called Tom's Studio. And today we're going to do a sort of a, you know how you have a beta test? And before the beta test comes the alpha test. And nobody ever sees the alpha test. Hold on, we got to get rid of this spammer here. 1 second. Welcome to the studio, dude. Glad to have you, but we are going to get rid of you. Hello, Clint. Glad to have you. Let's get rid of this guy. Can we get rid of him? Hide user, add moderator, put user in timeout. Yeah, let's put him in timeout. How many? 300 seconds. I guess that's not very long. Let's try again. Can we report him? Here we go. All right, sorry about that. I know I made some of you moderators in the chat in the past, and I don't remember who it was. And if you're a moderator and you want to moderate, have at it. Okay. Anyway, back to Tom's Studio. So today we're going to do an alpha segment. That is, it's definitely not ready for prime time. Testing it out. It's the first time I've tested it. You get to see it, so it's kind of, that's the whole nature of the Streaming Idiot Show. It's the behind the scenes kind of thing. You get to see it unvarnished with mistakes and everything. Excuse me 1 second. It's not lemonade today, but it's legal. It's just Coke, but don't tell my wife. Okay. Maggie, don't tell Sandy. So on today's episode of Tom's Studio, we are going to look at my audio setup. You would think, Tom's all about video. We'd start with video stuff. Well, we're going to start with the audio stuff, simply because it was a path of least resistance. I use a Behringer Euphoria UMC 404 HD. That's a long name for a little device, and I love it, and we'll go over to it in just a second. I also use an Audio-Technica AT897. Anyway, I've got it here. We'll show it to you in just a second. As my microphone, it's a condenser mic, so it's phantom powered, and the Behringer does the phantom power. And then, of course, I'm bringing that into vMix, and I bring it into vMix as an ASIO input, not as a Windows input. So if I look on my Windows list of all my Windows audio devices, it doesn't appear. The ASIO part does. Now, we'll get into that in just a second. Let's just dive into it, shall we? Let's do that. Okay, so I've got a, golly gee, I've got a webcam here somewhere. Let's move it there where we can see it. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that is the Behringer Euphoria UMD 404 HD. And you can see down at the far end, it has 4 XLR inputs. Those are combo inputs, so they'll do 1/4 inch as well. So you can do an instrument or a microphone. And is that reversed? It is. That whole thing is reversed. Let me spin that thing around. No wonder it didn't look right. Let's see. Position tab. Nope, everything looks fine. I wonder, I must have the webcam reversed somehow. Anyway, okay. Well, that's why Behringer is spelled backwards. So to the left of the the 4 XLR inputs, you'll see 4 little knobs. And those knobs go across. Can I get to it? Yeah, there we go. Those knobs right there, those are the gain knobs for the 4 audio channels. And you can see number 1 right there is clipping a little bit because I'm really close to the microphone. And then to the right of that, we have a mix knob, and below that is a monitor knob, and then to the right of that is a phone knob, and then to the right of that, then the phone knob is for the volume of the headsets, which is right here, which I've got a 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch adapter so that I can use just the little earbuds. And I'll use the earbuds when I've got a vMix call or something like that where I need to hear what's going on with that part of the show. Now, what I need to do is I need to put myself in that webcam because I just feel like I'm missing out on something. So let's see if we can put ourselves in that shot. Main shot. And make me smaller. Crop me a little bit. Not too much. X and Y, there we go. All right, now I feel better. Now I don't feel so left out and lost. So the nice thing, there's several nice things about this mixer. Number 1, it's not even a mixer. It is an audio interface. It connects to the PC via USB, which does, that in itself does a bunch of things. And one of the coolest things it does is it powers the mixer. So the mixer is powered USB. So I don't have to worry about plugging in something else somewhere. I don't have to worry about a failure in that. You know, it's just getting the 5 volts or whatever you get is all it needs to do that. And by the way, that's enough to run phantom power on all 4 XLR inputs as well. Where I'm just running phantom power on that one right now. Oh, look at this. My elbow went out of the screen. We'll have to work on that. The other thing I like about the USB, and since it's an audio interface and not a mixer would take multiple channels, mix them all together, and then send them to the PC, probably as 2 channels, left and right stereo. But the audio interface has the ability, using, at least with the Behringer, using the ASIO driver, which is not a Windows driver for audio. It's real low latency, but it also allows me to send all 4 of those inputs as separate inputs in vMix. So you notice I've got 2 XLRs plugged in right now. One is for my mic right here that I'm actually using, and the other is for a boom mic over there in the big part of the studio that I use when I have live guests in the studio or when I'm doing a show for somebody else here in the studio. So I've got the ability to control all 4 of those channels separately. I can add gain, I can do any type of VST3 plugin I want to, and all the other great things that you can do with vMix Audio. I can do that to those separately because they come in as separate channels. And that's what I really, really love the most about this, is that I can bring in multiple channels and be able to use them separately. The third thing, or is that the second? Yeah, that was the second. Here's the third. The third thing I like about this is I can take the audio from the Behringer, that's my microphone right here, and I can return it to my own ear without having it go through the PC and pick up any latency. You know how sometimes if you're listening to the output from vMix on a headset or something like that, you will hear yourself delayed by, half a second, maybe, maybe a quarter of a second. I don't know what it is. I need to test that sometime and find out. The Behringer will return my audio to me, or any audio that's here physically in the studio going through it, virtually immediately. I'm sure there's some latency, a millisecond, maybe 2, not enough for me to notice. I think I begin to notice right around 25, something like that. Test it out yourself sometime. But 250 or 500 is way too much. So I like the fact that I can route my own audio back to my own ear when I'm using it. I'm not using it right now. And there's no latency. And since I'm connected USB to the PC, not only can I send my audio to the PC using this ASIO driver in the PC, but the PC can also send audio back to the Behringer using a different, I guess, an ASIO output driver, so that I can then mix, and that's the mix knob that you see right, can we point to it? Right there. Yep, that mix knob right there allows me to mix the audio that I'm producing, or that's produced for any of the microphones that are plugged into it, to mix that audio with the audio coming from the PC. So for example, if I have a vMix call, I can mix those two together so that I hear myself and I hear my caller. And I really like that. If I have, some bumper music or something like that playing, I like the ability to be able to, excuse me, somebody's trying to call in. They'll have to wait. Sorry about that. Of course they'll have to wait. You guys are priority. I like the ability to mix that up. It keeps me in the loop. It means, and in vMix, I can determine what audio sources get sent to me, to my ear. So I don't have to hear everything. I can hear what I choose to hear. But I don't choose to hear myself from my mic. So I will make sure that that's not sent back to me. Really like this feature. There are parts of it I don't use. I don't use the pad. I don't use the trim. I don't use the different monitor controls. Tommy hears dead people, so there we go. Jan is asking, does it have additional outputs you can use via ASIO? Jan, I haven't explored outputs via ASIO. You'll have to be more specific in your question. The up to 4 microphones I can bring into the Behringer, and all 4 of those can come into vMix as individual inputs, and I can send output to the mixer that comes to my ear from vMix, and I can determine in vMix what that will be. I don't have any physical outputs other than the headphones here. I don't have it. The mixer itself does have outputs on the back of it, physical outputs, but I'm not using any of those. It's pretty slim and trim. I'm probably using, I would say, less than 30% of the features of the mixer, but it isn't that generally the case. And by the way, that is, yes, for those of you that were wondering, that is a Lego stand right there. So no question about that. No question about that. All right. So the other thing I've got here, the other part of the puzzle, and I bought this off of eBay a while back, and it came in this nice case. And in the case is, well, let's see if I've got a desktop view here we can look at. Yeah, there we go. So in the case comes, what's the best way to put it? There we go. Put it right there. The microphone, and it came with a nice cover. This is a what I would call a shotgun mic. Um, it is very directional, which I like. So I can point it where I want it to listen, and that's where it's going to listen. It is a condenser mic, so it requires a battery. Let's see, has this one got a battery in it? Probably not. Yep. It requires a battery, or it requires phantom power. And I like using phantom power because phantom power is there all the time. I have them on booms here in the studio, and so I'm making sure that I'm always mounting them on, kind of an isolation mount of some kind, which means that any vibration that's in the boom or associated with the boom is not being passed through to the microphone. What I like probably bestest with this is the fact that I don't have to worry about being mic'd. I don't have to worry about having something attached to me, or wearing a one that attaches to my ear. I'm just talking. The mic is, in this case, the mic is just out of the frame of the camera here to the right. See if I can bring it in a little bit so you can see what we've got here. And, pretending like that mic is a flashlight, I'm pointing it straight at my face, straight at my mouth, so that it gets the best audio it can. And I don't end up going to the men's room with my mic still on. And making a fool out of myself any more than I already do. So I've tried different mics. I've tried mics on a stand in front of me. I've tried lots of different mics, different lav mics, both hardwired as well as battery pack powered. And this one just ends up working, and it just it works consistently to the point where I forget about it. I forget about the mic. I forget about the Behringer. I forget about the USB. It just works. It works all the time. Now, there have been some occasions where people have said, well, I turn on my PC and, vMix doesn't see my Behringer. There are lots of reasons that could happen. Who was it? Somebody I was talking to said, every time I set it up at the football stadium, it won't find. And that was the clue, was that they were plugging the USB into a different port. vMix didn't know to look to that port to find the audio. And so once they put a little label and said, always plug this in here, that problem went away. Somebody else I was talking to was basically had a failing USB port, and it wouldn't always power the mixer. So there are those kinds of things. You could do a whole show on Tom's grunts and groans. Oh my gosh. Is it that bad, Tommy? Gee whiz. That's what happens when you get old. You just grunt and groan a lot. So now I want to be self-conscious about it. Thank you very much. So the idea was that I would find something that would work for me that didn't require constant attention from me. Now, I have used, prior to the Behringer, I've used two different mixers. I used a Behringer X1204, I think it was, USB, which was goodish. Prior to that, I had used an Alesis 4, Multimix 4, I think is what it was called. The Multimix 4 got re-gifted to my son Jordan to use as part of his music profession for his one-man band, which he plays in the Tampa area. If you're ever in the Tampa area, keep an eye out for him. And the Behringer X1204, I think I resold. I think I bought it for $170 and resold it for $120 and used it for 3 years. I thought that was an incredible deal. But I was always tinkering with it, always trying to get something to work that wouldn't work, trying to get multiple inputs into it and have those show up in vMix. Now, I will tell you that possibly part of the reason that it didn't work for me was because I'm an idiot. I don't know about things like that. My little clock is driving me nuts here, so I'm going to have to turn it off. There we go. I feel better. It's important that I feel better, of course. So I've learned an awful lot more about audio since those days and about routing audio from a mixer. But that mixer just didn't have what I really needed. And what I found out is that vMix really has what I need, and that I can do almost anything I need to in vMix in the audio section with routing if I can get the various microphones into vMix as individual inputs. That was the key to an audio interface as opposed to a mixer. So I'm not mixing multiple sources. I'm bringing multiple sources in, each one on its own, with a microphone, or actually 3 microphones that I dearly love. And I've mic'd, I haven't mic'd anybody, but I've mic'd the studio so that we can bring in, I think I've had as many as 6 people in here on one mic, and everybody sounded fine. And nobody was inconvenienced or, felt like they had to worry about a wire coming up through them, something like that. It really has made it much, much easier. The room that I'm in has been, well, let me, do I have a way? I bet I have a way. We must have a way here somewhere where we can show you the room that I'm in. So let me pull up this little camera right here. You can see me back there. There we go. And it's a PTZ camera. So we can, let's zoom all the way out. We are, and we can pan a little bit to the right here. And you can see that's the beginnings of curtains. Whoops. And you can see my screen. And those are just drapes. Right now they're just pulled up, but they provide somewhat of a buffer. And can we see behind the TV? Yeah, there we go. There's another green screen with a thick moving blanket suspended behind it. And then even further to the right here, and again, it's black on black, so it's another curtain. Let's zip back around this way and show you me. And the green screen behind me at the moment is not, doesn't have any kind of sound absorption to it other than just the muslin fabric, but it will. And then to that side, you can see here and here are 2 sound absorbing panels that I built out of fiberglass ductboard that rest on top of the server that runs vMix. Well, it's not a server, it's just a PC, but it's running vMix, and it's right here next to me. And so I've done this to kind of cut out some of the noise. And then we've got moving blankets there, and then different ones around different places. And then the front door is kind of treated for that as well. And then there are a lot, as you can see back in the background, back here, there are lots of boxes, different shapes. So those tend to break up the sound pretty well too. So I can get away with using condenser mics here. I mean, a condenser mic is very sensitive. It can literally hear a pin drop. Sam, the microphone is an Audio Technica AT897. In case you missed it before, it's a shotgun mic. It is it's not obtrusive. We can slip a cover over it, a windsock, if you will. It probably, I think it has enough room for a flag. We could probably adjust the windsock up a little bit and put a flag on there if you've wanted to use it for a local news broadcast. But it's very good at catching sound from a distance of, what are we, 20 inches here, or maybe 4 or 5 feet over there, maybe more than 4 or 5 feet. And I like it just better than a lav. And I don't end up pulling a cable out of a connector somewhere, or walking into the bathroom with a live mic. Both of which I've done, by the way. So yeah, and only done once, I think. Yep. The lights in the studio we'll talk about when we talk about lighting, Tommy, so you'll just have to wait for that segment. This segment that we're working on right now is an alpha version of a segment that I'm going to call Tom's Studio, where we talk about what I'm using in the studio, how I'm using it, why I chose it, and what I may have used before, so that you can kind of get some of the history. And my hope is that maybe you don't have to take all the multiple steps that I took to get good audio, or to get what I think is acceptable audio. I don't know that it's good audio. You can be the determination of that. But keep it in mind, what is the audio doing between the time it leaves my lips and it hits your ear? It's going into a mic, it's going into a cable, it's going into the Behringer UMC H404 HD. It's going over a USB cable and being accepted in my computer as an ASIO source into vMix. It's being processed by vMix. It's being uploaded to YouTube and Facebook, and you're getting it on your TV through YouTube or Facebook, or your laptop or your phone, and then that is attached to some sort of audio output, whether it's speakers or earbuds or headset or whatever it might be. And I think the quality of my audio may be more affected by what you're listening to it with than anything else in that process. Granted, I've got to have decent audio to begin with, but you've got to have decent speakers. My audio doesn't sound nearly as good to my ear on this as it does when I play it on my TV at the house. And by the way, I can't stand to listen to it for very long, at least most shows. Some shows I'll listen to it the whole time if it's a show I know I liked. Like this one might be it. So there we go. So this has been the first segment of Tom's Studio, where I talk a little bit about my audio setup. We'll get in deeper probably into how I've done it in vMix, and how and why maybe I've done some things with the audio interface, the Behringer, and the different booms that I'm using and things like that. But you can get, well, here you go. You can get a little bit of an idea here that I've just got. I think this may have been one of those flexible lights that you would have at a workstation or something like that, and I modified it over. And then, of course, this mic, this AT897, is hanging with a non-approved. It is definitely not this rack. It is just being taped up there with some gaff tape. And I'm not using that mic now. So there. So yeah. But that's a nice boom arm. It's counterbalanced and it's perfect for the studio across the way. Right now I'm using it just for the overhead camera shot. But we'll talk more about cameras, and we'll talk about things like that as we go on. Tommy's asking a question in the chat: is this going to replace Streaming Idiots? That's a good question, Tommy. That is a really good question. I love the Streaming Idiots concept. I don't think it's gotten stale, or I don't know that it's gotten old. It might have gotten a little stale. We might have to figure out how to revise it. But I think it's also time for something new. Whether this new thing is in addition to or instead of, we'll have to see. But this has been the first segment of Tom's Studio, called the audio setup section. Next week on Tom's Studio, we are going to talk about video. And very specifically, we're going to talk about the PTZ Optics Generation 2 PTZ cameras and the new firmware update that has been released for that, and why you might be interested in that if you have a Gen 2 PTZ Optics camera. So stay tuned for that. If you don't want to wait, I'm sure there's some videos out there on YouTube. There's one that Paul Richards with PTZ Optics did with Gary Benton of Video Guys. And it actually is a pretty good overview. I mean, it's more than just an overview of the firmware update, but part of that interview includes a pretty good update on the firmware. But we'll talk some more about that next week here. If you have any questions about that, of course, holler to me. If you have questions about audio, and you want to know more now about my audio setup or how you can get a setup like this, which I don't sell, by the way, where's the lower third? Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, it's not there. Hot dog. Anyway, streamingidiots.com. Yeah, there you go. And that'll be, there's a contact form there, and you can ask me a question on that. Let's go to the post show, and I'll take your questions in the post show. So we'll be right back. Okay, we are in the post show. Rooney, you got to get out of there, buddy. There we go. So is this going to replace Streaming Idiots? Tommy, that's a great question. And let me expand on that just a little bit. Some of my thinking is, number one, a show called Tom's Studio could probably do real well on its own. Especially for folks that are just getting into live streaming or have been into it, I'd say for a year or less. And they would, where they're still in the kind of the questioning phase, do I have the right gear? Is the gear that I have doing what I need it to do for me? And I think some of that I can answer. And so that would be the purpose of that. Whether that ends up being a show all by itself or a segment in the Streaming Idiot show, I don't know. Today, I think I went about 20 minutes on that. And that could be a whole show in the, in a kind of a Tom Studio format, because it certainly took up the bulk of the time today. I mean, in Streaming Idiots, we wouldn't have had time for a guest, for example. If you joined us late, and let me go back to the other shot, the lower third here is a URL that will take you to a website where you can make a contribution in honor of Martin Steed, our good friend Martin, who died a couple of weeks ago of complications from COVID. The Just Giving website will pass the monies through to the organization called Made Well that supports disabled folks, and Martin worked very closely with them and loved them dearly, and I think they loved him dearly, and you can honor him and his work there and his life by making a contribution of any size right there. Doesn't matter what size. So there we go. We went back to that one just for a second. I didn't want you to miss that in case you did. Tom said, thanks. Sam said, well, let's see, we've got it right here. Let's just put it up there if we get over to that page. Got one mouse, but too many. There we go. And we got to get rid of Rooney again. And we can get rid of that lower third again. There we go. Might be just what I need when I interview multiple guests. Sam, I would say it will certainly simplify things. And I would bet that most of your audience wouldn't know the difference. There might be some of those audiophiles that would know the difference. But heck, it Might even be an improvement. You never know. Tim, I thought about other names for that, but I don't come from a broadcasting background. I don't come from an audio background. Um, I'm a dad of kids that played soccer, and I took pictures of them, and that's how I got into this. That's a story for another time. And so I don't want to make any, I don't want, I don't want to kind of make any statements with a name that might say I have more experience and expertise than I really do hold. I mean, yeah, I know a lot of stuff. Most of it's useless, but I don't know everything there is to know about control rooms, and I frankly I don't want to. I think a lot of the technology that's being used in control rooms today is there because people are scared to try something new and different. I'm amazed at the people that have not embraced NDI. I'm amazed at the people that are still following the same path with a hardware switcher that they followed, 20 years ago. They're still pulling a 53-foot truck when, half a dozen vMix machines would do the same thing from anywhere in the world. Anyway, sorry I got way off that, Tim, but I don't want to put myself forward as somebody that's more technical and more skilled than I am. And I thought something kind of low key, kind of homey, kind of folksy, where it's just you and me talking. We're just sitting on the front porch, or in my studio. And I love to refer to this as my studio. When people say, "Where's your office?" I say, "Well, I have a studio in such and such place." So there we go. Yeah, Chris, NDI Bridge was released as a beta. We can talk about that sometime real soon too. What is today? Wednesday, I think Monday. It had been a feature of NDI 5.0 that didn't work. And so they disabled it and said, it's coming. I haven't looked at it yet. What was your experience with it? Chris says, I plays with NDI Bridge yesterday. Tommy says, I think you should do both shows all at the same time slot. Streaming Idiots for interviews and new products, showcases, and Tom Studios for what you're doing behind the scenes. That's interesting that you would say that, Tommy, because there used to be a show called That VidBlaster Guy. That was my very first show, and I learned an awful lot in that. Number one is you don't put a product name in the show when you don't have any control over the product. Because I didn't. I was a VidBlaster reseller, but I had no control over the product. And I realized that, number one, there was more to streaming than VidBlaster. And so that's when I started the Streaming Idiots show. And I think the VidBlaster Guy show went for a year, maybe two, before we started Streaming Idiots. And we did exactly what you said. We did two shows back to back. I think that VidBlaster Guy was an hour show originally, and then we split it, cut it in half, and the first part was That VidBlaster Guy, and the second part was Streaming Idiots. And so Streaming Idiots basically covered everything else to do with streaming, and we could talk about Wirecast and vMix and everything else since it wasn't brand specific to That VidBlaster Guy. Also, I think the other unintended consequence, just because I'm an idiot, but you knew that, was that I ticked off the VidBlaster developer because he's That VidBlaster Guy, not me. So anyway, you live and you learn, and you hope you don't tick off too many people along the way. So, but it was also a real crush on me to prep for two shows. Somehow one show that was an hour was less to prep for than two shows that totaled an hour. And I was just worn out after those two shows. So I probably wouldn't do that back to back. I wouldn't be opposed to doing them on different days. Probably not, time slots that were apart on the same day, because that just, you know, I don't know. I'd have to think it through all the way. But yeah, we'll see. We will see. It was a great learning experience. Now that I've learned it, I don't want to repeat it. That's the whole idea about learning, so you don't do dumb stuff again. Yeah. So that's the story there. You remember him, that him is the VidBlaster guy, meaning me, yeah. And then VidBlaster really shot themselves in the foot. It was just one person behind the whole outfit, and he was it. And there we go. And yeah, I think he had a little bit of an attitude. So we could do Streaming Idiots some weeks and Tom's Studio some weeks. Yeah, we could, or we could alternate weeks. That's a thought. There may not be, enough content to do a Tom's Studio every week. Maybe we do Streaming Idiots on alternate weeks. Yeah, that's a thought. Texas to Florida. Well, you're on I-10, and I'm on I-10. So come on through. You can either come down. We're about 12 miles south of I-10, or I'll meet you up there and buy you lunch, dinner, or breakfast, or whatever. Probably not a midnight snack, but yeah, Chris would love to have you. That'd be great. It's been a while. Chris and I met at NAB 10 years ago when they still used to do NAB. No, it hadn't been that long, but boy, it seems like it, doesn't it? Holy cow. Yep. Well, it has been good to hang out with you guys this afternoon. One of the things that I want to talk about on Tom's Studio, and I should have done during the regular course of it, but is just to talk about some of the projects that we've got here in the workshop. We're just sending out today a live streaming PC called the vMix Go, which was an official product manufactured for vMix and sold under the vMix name in the US, I think like 2014, 2015, 2016, sometime in that time period. And it was a wonderful system. I think it just suffered from a not good marketing campaign. The folks that were marketing it here in the U.S. just couldn't get the job done for whatever reason. But there was a school that bought one, and it stopped working. It don't work when we turn it on. So I said, send it back, we'll fix it. And so we had it back, got it Monday. We'll send it out today, and really it spent most of yesterday and all night last night just testing to make sure that it didn't break again. But as it turned out, it had several things wrong with it. The little battery that kind of holds the memory for the keeps the memory on for the BIOS. That battery had died, so we put a new one of those in. And this is something I'd never encountered before. It's a 2-part fan cooler. It has the heat sink, and then mounted on top of the heat sink was a fan. And the fan died. Take that back. The fan didn't die. The fan worked intermittently. What good is a fan that works intermittently? So turns out I had the exact same size fan on hand. And Michael, if you're watching this show, I didn't have to order a fan after all. I had one on hand. And so we fixed it and fixed the other thing that kept the PC from booting. It had a bad SSD for some reason, and I pulled it out, put it in a different machine here, and repaired it. Was able to get it we didn't reformat it. It did whatever Windows does, and it fixed it. And I put it back in the vMix Go, and the vMix Go booted right up. So there you go. That was a lot of fun. And then we are building a system from scratch for a sign company, and it's going to be nice. It's got 4 SDI inputs and 1 SDI output. It's in a server type case, and the challenge with the server cases is you never know where those things are going to live. And so we stripped out most of the factory installed fans in this server case, and we put in some high performance, low noise fans so that the unit is going to get lots of circulation. I like the Noctua brand because they've done a good they've done a good job of engineering the blades so that they really cut down on the sound noise without cutting down on the amount of air that they move. And so that's really been good and fun. So those are 2 projects, and then there's a third project where we're powder coating a system, and I'll have some pictures of that for you in a future show. So let's see. So Sam is going to be in Gulf Shores for a couple. Oh, good. Sam would love to have you come by for a studio tour, and then I'll take you out to lunch. How about that? That would be great. That would be great. And Bill, I think that's a good idea, a tour of other studios. And that's what we're going to do with Charles Smar with the city of Daytona Beach. We built a system for them, installed it a couple of weeks ago, and Charles is going to come on the show soon. Not sure exactly what it was. We are going to bring him in and let him show off his studio, which is very much a sports production studio. So yeah. Good idea. Good idea. Jan say, SSD dies, that's life. Once an SSD starts to misbehave. It's funny because the way Martin Sinclair designed this PC that he had built, called the vMix Go, is that it had 2 internal SSDs, the old, 3.5-inch jobs, the ones that would fit in a laptop. And then it had 4 hot swappable drive bays, and 3 of those bays had SSDs in them. 2 of them were marked video storage, and 1 of them was marked, what was it marked? Something like lifetime backup or something like that. And that's the one that failed. And when I looked on it, basically it was just a clone of the C drive, so that you could, I guess, pop that one in and it would take off. So that's probably a good recommendation, that they just throw that one away. They've had this machine for 6 years. This is the first time they've had any trouble. Do some backups and don't worry about having a new main drive on it. Yeah, good suggestion. Good suggestion. Yep. What has Otis got to say here? 2 guys again. We send those people to pick them up. Bid Blast Review Next guy. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Always. Well, I doubt if this little school is gonna do that. And I don't think this one was a mirror. I don't think it was set up to mirror. I think it was just set up as a backup, and it was just installed in one of the drives. Yep. And Xavier, I agree. And I trimmed all the others, but yeah, it probably is the time where they ought to replace them all, just to keep them, get them before they get them. Let the SSDs be replaced before they fail, I guess is what I want. And here's a recommendation for Samsung Magician. So there you go. and a good analysis. Thank you, Jan. I appreciate that. Yeah. So there you go. Let's see. What other comments might have I missed? Uh-huh. So we'll take you out with the words of wisdom from Marie. Even at the end of the internet, there is spam. You could make that sound really profound. Marie and Jan, I look forward to seeing you guys again sometime soon. Not sure when that would be. It looks like NAB is going to be a go for April in Las Vegas. It looks like the Australian contingent, which would be, vMix and Bird Dog and whoever else, probably some Black Magic guys, maybe Noctua, will be able to travel by then. They can leave the country, they just can't come back into the country. I think they have to quarantine in a state hotel. Am I getting my countries confused? Anyway, but they're hoping a lot of that will be lifted or lightened so that they can travel to the U.S. in April. And we'll do our Streaming Idiots meetup for sure. So if you're planning a trip to the U.S. or to Las Vegas for that, make sure you save the, that would be the second night of NAB show. I think there's a day where the NAB conference starts, then the trade show starts the next day, and then the third day would be the Streaming Idiots meetup, or the second day of the show. So yeah, so good. Well, guys and gals, it's been a treat to hang out with you. And as always, I've learned a bunch from you. And yeah. So there we go. Could we not get rid of this guy? Oh, well, that's all right. We'll get rid of him now because we're going to end the show. So there you go. I'll teach him a lesson. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care. And now we got to figure out how to get out of here. Do we have a way to get out of here? Oh, yeah. Here we go.